Okay, so this was the last category, and I'm sure I'm confused with this topic of the metaverse. I don't know if a lot of people are also confused, just like I am. And I know we have some different perspectives in the audience. We also saw it in some of the pitches. But I want to first dive into this concept, try to define it. You know, we talk about AR, VR, we talk about 2D, 3D, Web3, blockchain. You're mentioning Roblox, decentralized. People are buying yacht for $600 million online. What is this concept? Can you please help me and everyone in the audience? Maybe. And I feel like Charles and David, you have two different perspectives just looking at your pitch. Take it easy, but maybe one of you want to start just helping us define this concept.
I'm happy to start. So I think it's tricky. Facebook has just renamed themselves to Meta. It's something we see every day in the papers. For me, the metaverse is somewhere where you can socialize, you can work, you can pay for things. And in many cases, I think, and David, you might have a different opinion to me, but I think people think if you put a VR headset on, you're suddenly in the metaverse. For me, it's actually a place where you're socializing, you're working, and you're paying for things. And that's why I think a game like Roblox could be something that's closest to the metaverse right now. But David, what's your
I guess to pick up on that, I mean, what's funny is online games with massive audiences have been around for a very long time, so the concept is not very new.
Yeah.
But to your point, the new concept is that there's a lot of people at the same time, and it might be connected, interconnected. So to me, Roblox is partially metaverse, but it's not connected to other platforms. So if you were to build an avatar or clothing for Roblox and couldn't carry to another environment like the Sandbox or Decentraland or other, then for me, that's not the metaverse. That's one point. I guess the AR, VR debate for me is that I was mentioning in the pitch is that augmented reality helps go outside and helps visualize objects in the real world. So partly that's metaverse because we're augmenting the real world with useful information. And there's a bit of two camps at the moment in the tech sector. So you have the Facebooks that are purely on the VR camp at the moment, but then you have Google and you have Snapchat to some extent. You have some other companies that are invested in visual search. So that's more about walking around with your mobile phone and being able to do AR navigation in a store. So it might be a Carrefour, it might be Sedomo or other store, and you're like being navigated to somewhere. Or it might be visualizing objects on you or in the real world. So that's already partly what we consider the metaverse.
Okay.
Hopefully that helped. I'm not sure.
I mean, did that help? Kedan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think David and Charles mentioned a lot from the technology and the experience side, right? But if you really think about metaverse, there's something even more crucial, is the user's time, right? The goal or the whole purpose for the metaverse to exist is for people to spend time, a lot of time in this virtual world. And it's also probably the best way to measure the success of metaverse, right? Assume there is a metaverse where like 10% of the population are spending like 10% of their time there, right? Even if we look at the largest metaverse right now, you could say it's Facebook, like Quest 2, or like you could say it's the AR, but it's still kind of far from hitting there. And what's missing is probably still the experience. So people are comfortable to spend more time there, but they're still innovating. So the time that people are spending as a whole in the metaverse are increasing. And it's compromising of more than one metaverse. Like part of them will be in VR, in AR, or something else.
And Charles, yesterday we were talking and you were mentioning that Instagram is a metaverse.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's not the metaverse, but I think it's closest to what we consider.
Why?
It's a place where people do spend a lot of time in there. They socialize in there. They purchase things in there. They have a digital persona. So I wouldn't say it's the metaverse as we're being described, but if it's a place where people are spending their time digitally, expressing themselves digitally, that's closer than most. Closer than VR right now, I would say.
Maybe to add one thing around the user experience, because that's pretty interesting, I think, is that usage to gather information or to get information has changed over time. So it used to be big computers in a professional environment, then we brought the computers to our house, then we have laptops that we can put in a backpack. Then we have mobile phones now, where we have that in a pocket. So that for me, the next iteration of the internet and how we're going to navigate and find information is going to be that visual search. So it is the AR glasses and the other devices and VR, because they're going to be mixed in the end. Like for me, VR, AR, it's all going to be the same. What we call mixed realities, it's going to be provided by the same hardware companies. But that's going to change the way we find information. So it's really important for retailers, because as you're walking out on the street, you're getting all this contextual information all around you. So it's really a change in paradigm of how you navigate information.
Okay. Kate, you're listening, and I'm wondering what you're thinking. Maybe from a technology perspective, and then we'll jump back to what are the opportunities for brands to get involved. But you're specialized in 3D, and from a tech perspective, assuming we're being immersed in this world, and I've heard the term D2A, direct to avatars. I know it sounds strange, and assuming we have each an avatar somewhere in a virtual world.
Yeah. So
how does that work?
Yeah. So if we consider Metaverse like a, I don't know, the separate world, or the world that augments like our life. So it's about a 3D twin or 3D avatar that lives in the Metaverse, that acts somehow, behaves somehow. So, and this is your twin. So it's your body, your shapes, your measurements. So this is the opportunity from the technology perspective.
So you're seeing this
yeah, I can imagine this, and probably that's gonna happen in a few years.
And if we look at we look at the perspective for brands, what are the opportunities today? How to get involved?
There are a lot.
What would be in your and Charles? We can start with gaming, because I guess it's a starting point, and we've seen brands doing some activations.
Yeah.
But what's next?
Yeah, so I think just with gaming at the moment, obviously it's such a large audience that's been ignored by brands for a very long period of time. And really, why are brands getting involved right now? Well, there's a large audience, so you want to get your brand in front of them. But it's about being culturally relevant. This is where people are spending time. Brands have to be relevant to these people. And then finally, it's a new revenue stream. In these digital worlds, there are digital goods. And I'll take the Gucci and Roblox example. They sold a Gucci handbag. It's a Dionysus bag with a B on it. And that bag inside Roblox sells for more in the game than it does in real life. And why is that? It's because when you have your avatar, that is an extension of your digital persona. So brands have a part to play in this space to help people identify with what they do in the real world. David,
yeah, just to add to that point, I think it's about digital real estate as well. Yeah. What I found fascinating is when you used to develop a website, you're building traffic and you have consumers going to that website. People monetize that website by selling digital ads to retailers like you and brands who want to promote their services. So let's go back to my point about we're changing the way we navigate and find information. Now it's all visual. Now it's all in a virtual gaming environment or Roblox or other. That explains why now there are companies buying millions of dollars worth of real estate in Decentraland, Sandbox, and other, because someone bought Fashion Street, for example, in Sandbox or Decentraland, and they're now going to rent out that virtual space to brands so they have their virtual storefronts. Because that's how younger people are now socializing and navigating and talking to each other. They're not going on 2D websites on computers. They're going into Roblox, Decentraland, Sandbox, and other environments.
So you're saying I lead real estate in a company and brand, and today I'm thinking where I want to open stores. I have to consider also this virtual world.
Yeah, it's happening. Nike's done it. Ralph Lauren's doing it with Roblox.
Adidas just went in Sandbox. I think, look, there's a lot of hype in this space, and one has to be quite careful because we're seeing the first iteration right now, and these are essentially games built on the blockchain. So there's a limited amount of land. Can you own this land? Maybe. But the question is how many people are going to be in the sandbox? I mean, is it going to be an area that's got a lot of people in it? That's the point. It's where are the people going to be? And just further to your point, is there going to be one metaverse? Is there going to be multiple metaverses? And there'll be multiple different LAN packages in these different metaverses. Be careful, because the one you buy into might not be the one.
Okay.
So that's what I would say to that.
And if we look at it from a consumer perspective, and maybe Kedan, you have any thoughts on the shopping journey, on the path to purchase? How is this being influenced by this whole new virtual world? And are we going to end up buying just digital goods versus physical goods? Could that happen? I mean, it's happening, but where do you see this going?
It's a very interesting question. Like when you talk about shopping in Metaverse, right? I mean, part of it is like using the Metaverse to shop for physical good. But I think what people are maybe more like envisioning are using like shopping digital good in the Metaverse. And what does this mean for brands and retailers, right? If we think about it very deeply. So I was actually chatting with my co-founder yesterday about this specific topic. And there's two key points that changes when people shop for digital good versus physical good. Is that there is no manufacturing and there's no logistic. These are the two key points that kind of the brands and the retailers are investing a lot to empower it, right? But these are gone in the Metaverse. Like there will be something like an app store or like an asset store where like the owner of the Metaverse, they probably could just own the store, right? And if for a retailer today that really like holds a lot of the stocking and have a very good logistic, that won't be their competitive advantage anymore.
On that, do you agree on that point? Could it, because we're replicating the current world, could we also end up with logistic? I mean, it's extremely futuristic.
AR, I do think AR is interesting because a small shop that doesn't have inventory in the shop, you can use AR to visualize the product. In the real world, obviously, that's what we do. So that does help with logistics and not having to have stock. Sustainability is super important. You know, like fashion retailers spend a lot of water, and there's a lot of issues around sustainability. So yeah, of course, having AR to pre-visualize something and not having to try on, not having to touch it with COVID issues, etc. So there's so much usefulness in the technology on the AR side. Yeah.
Kate, you listening to these boys talking and
I'm thinking that who could imagine that, I don't know, even a few years ago, that we will discuss that brands and retailers will get like additional revenue stream from selling digital goods. So we can, I don't know, we can look at 20 years ago again, and at that point of time, what the percentage of the revenue were going from online shopping, for example. And at that time, probably people thought that who will buy online? But now we know that the huge part of the revenue goes. And probably that will happen with digital goods as well.
On that point, I don't know how much time we have left, but should I open the topic about NFTs and what's happening, or Web3, or trying to define, because you have some metaverses powered by blockchain?
I would just quickly add to that the digital goods stuff for brands at the moment, utility is the key word. And I think we're hearing a lot on NFTs and digital art and how that's taken a huge jump. When brands get involved with NFTs, this is very tricky. And they must have utility attached to them. So what we're seeing is actually the most successful branded digital goods right now have a physical twin. And you use those digital NFTs to add utility in the real world. Things like club tokens. I don't know if you've seen that, David.
No, I agree with your utility, but it's all about uniqueness as well, because now you can really own a very unique piece of digital clothing. So companies like DressX and other companies like Fabricant, etc., Artifact for sneakers are super interesting because they create really unique pieces that only you will own because you have that piece on the blockchain. So you have the digital ID that proves that you're the owner. AR does help a little bit because you can also visualize it on your feet or on your body, etc. So it's not just a completely virtual thing. But yeah, that's super interesting. And a lot of younger people want to be able to own that. We go back to avatars and sort of metaverse. And
yeah. So maybe to close off, 2 points. How do you see the future of commerce? And maybe if you can mention, we're talking about a lot about fashion. What about other categories? And how does that fit in those virtual world? maybe we can start with, you want to go?
I mean, to me, it's about visual search. So that's back to how navigation and how the internet access is changing. So for me, in a couple of years, we'll be having AR glasses from Facebook, Apple, Snapchat, and other players. And we'll walk around and we'll have augmented, useful information. So that's changing the game in terms of everything retail. You know, if you go to a store, that store has to be experiential. It's not just about trying on physically. It's about having an experiential sort of thing that brings loyalty to the brand. It's about being useful by navigating the store. If you're in a supermarket, Carrefour, like you want recipes and find the right food, etc. So yeah, it's all becoming useful and it's all helping you navigate in a visual way rather than through text or audio or other means.
For me, I would say it's digital ownership. Like that's the thing that's really going to drive it forward. And as brands, how do you place yourself in this world? How can you add value? How can you add utility in this digital space? So I think for me, that's the future. It's harnessing that ownership and not just looking at it in the digital world, but saying, how can we use this ownership as a token for the physical world?
Kedan, any thoughts?
Yeah, and another interesting point that's definitely going to happen in the metaverse is the amount of goods that's available, right? Like there will be a large supply of goods, much more than the physical world because it's much easier to produce them and there will be more people producing them. So now when it comes to the shopping experience, to the customer, like how can brands, retailers help them like choose and find the items that they truly want? Which comes back to like understanding more about the user, like, and that doesn't have to wait until the metaverse is like extremely popular to happen. It could happen nowadays, right? And that's something a lot of brands are and retailers are investing heavily right now. And also, I would just relate to our product a little bit. Like, even though we are building a virtual dressing room that enhance like the experience for the shopper, another side of the dressing room is actually to help the brands and retailers to understand their shopper. Because as shoppers are engaging with the interactions, there's a lot of data that the brands and the retailer can observe, like what kind of item people choose and how do they style them together, like what kind of model, what background they would use, for example. So these are stuff that will be very interesting, like to start now rather than just watching and waiting for the metaverse to start understanding the users.
And to close off, Kate, is this all is this all appealing, or do you agree? Are we going in the right direction? It feels a bit strange.
I'm gonna be really short. So I believe that at least at the beginning, Metaverse should make our life easier.
That was on purpose. Thank you so much. I hope it's a bit more clear. All right.